All right, the meeting is called to order because we just barely have a quorum. After counting twice, we've decided we do. So let us start with roll call.
Mayor Peterson? Absent. Member Bennett? Absent. Member Tesler? Absent. Member Nanke?
I'm here.
Yes.
Member Clausen? Absent. Member Dickey?
Here.
Member Thomas? Absent. Member Cannon?
Here, number 4.
Member Clem? Absent. Member Berger?
Here.
Member Kylowite?
Here.
Member Summers?
Here.
Member George?
Here.
Member McEvely?
Here.
Member Strozent?
Here.
Member Motley?
Here.
Member Vick? Absent. Member Pruitt?
Here.
Is that everyone? All right, thank you. Well, we need to all vote the same way tonight if we want to pass anything, because it takes 10 of us to pass anything. Either that or more of us will need to show up. So hopefully that will happen.
I'd like to think we've got 3 over in a meeting.
Member Summers, would you be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it's time for the minutes. Have we reviewed them? Yes, Member Nanke?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would move approval of the minutes of the May 4th meeting of the Salem Budget Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Nanke, seconded by Member Cannon to approve the May 4th Budget Committee meeting minutes as submitted. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Neville, do you have correspondence to tell us about?
Yes, thank you, Chair Strozit. Good evening, and good evening, fellow Budget Committee members. I'm Deborah Neville, the city's budget officer. This evening we have one item of correspondence in your agenda packet. It is a letter from Rosemary Cooper petitioning to end the water and sewer franchise fee. Moving on to handout material, which is item 5 on the agenda. Item 5A is a staff report regarding the Planning Division budget addressing the neighborhood planning issue that was brought up at the April 20th Budget Committee meeting, yes. And this is provided for your information. Vicki Harden-Woods is in the audience this evening if you do have any questions on this report. The next item on the agenda is item 5B. It is the third quarter financial report for the city of Salem. I would be happy to review this with you this evening. However, there is a fair amount of detail. If you'd like to read it at your leisure, I would be happy to bypass my presentation and entertain any questions or concerns you may have at another time via email or a telephone conversation. So I'd like to turn to the committee to see what their pleasure would be.
What is our pleasure?
Just continue, please.
I'd like to hear just in a nutshell whether things are going up or down. Are we within where it was projected, et cetera? That's all I'm interested in.
All right, I'd be happy to proceed then. On the first page of the city report, there is several bullet points. Those are fairly easy to read through, and I'm not going to read each one of those because they are available to read. The general fund, to get to the bottom line of that one, is that our revenues are actually tracking fairly well with what we would have expected. Our current revenues are 1.1% more in our third quarter this year than they were last year. Ideally, they would be a little bit higher. However, the economy has affected our fee revenues. Our franchise revenues are not as expected. Fortunately, our property tax revenues are tracking as expected, and they're up within the range that we would have expected at this time of year. 95% of those property taxes have been received to date, so we're able to get a pretty good handle on our general fund revenues based upon that being 50% of our revenue. Our expenses, again, are also tracking as expected. We've been able to save some money in overtime based upon the changes in the fire department operational procedures. That's one of our big savings. However, our large departments, our police department, fire department, and in fact IT, we're tracking just a little bit ahead of last year. We've spent in total among all of our departments about 67% of our budgeted revenue. Interestingly enough, this is about of what we've spent of the budget last year. Moving on to other funds, our Public Works Fund is shown on page 6 of the quarterly report. I'm trying to read my note here. Our budgeted revenues are up due to state highway revenue increases. They're offset with the reductions to intra-fund department revenues, transfer revenues. We show an increase of $1.5 million. It's primarily due to the state highway revenues. Our expenditure increases include 7 positions, 5 of which were funded by anticipated increases in state highway revenues. And of course, we've told you before that we don't fill positions unless we have sufficient revenue coming in. Our expenditures from year to year in the Public Works Fund are similar to last year, so nothing unusual here or alarming. The same is true of the Airport Fund. We have a slight decrease in our beginning balance, which we had anticipated. It is offset by an increase in our landing fees, so that's good news. Community Renewal Fund, our expenditures this year in 10-11 are higher by about $1 million, and that's due to the additional revenue we received in grant funds for the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. We receive payments after we spend the money. It looks like we might have a negative fund balance. That's because we have spent money that has not yet been received, because it is a reimbursable type of grant or funding from the federal government. In the Parking Fund, our beginning balance is down due to the completion of several capital projects. Our revenues coming in from the parking tax assessments are, as expected, a little bit higher due to the increase in the rate that we had in that particular fund for the purpose of maintaining our parking area downtown. In the Cultural and Tourism Fund, our beginning fund balance is down. However, the good news is here is our top revenue is up a little bit, in about 3.3% over last year at this time. The expenditures are a little bit lower due to the cost allocation plan costs being lower and reduced building services for historic structures. I'm skipping a few of these because they are rather insignificant. And you can read about them in your report. As you can see in the Building and Safety Fund, we have reduced our expenditures based upon our lowered revenues in response to the slower development in the building community. We have responded by reducing the staffing and providing less funds for keeping those people on board. The Capital Improvements Fund has several transfers that have occurred in here in the third quarter in 09-10, $80 million worth of those, and they appear as revenues and expenses. However, they will be reversed in the fourth quarter, and it'll show up differently as we look at our fourth quarter report. The future, or the expenditures, resources are also down because we are holding off on providing a water sewer fund transfer. We transfer rate money into the capital improvements fund for projects, and those are being deferred until 2011, 2012, that are included in your proposed budget. I'm going to skip up to the water and sewer fund on page 10, and here the revenues are growing as expected based upon the rate increase that was implemented last January of 2010. Expenses are down primarily due to the transfer that is not being made to the capital improvements fund this year. It will be made next year once again, and we have budgeted for that accordingly. Page 11, the Emergency Medical Services Fund, the revenues have decreased due to the fact that we've, in agreement with Rural Metro, our contract ambulance provider, we are now responding to 1 call per day as opposed to 3. That means our revenues go down. Likewise, our expenses go down as well. Let's see if there's anything else here. I think the other funds that remain are tracking as expected, and we've made notations as needed for those. And you just rest assured that we keep an eye on our expenses and revenues every month, even though we report to you quarterly.
And if I could add, Deborah, you'll see on page 11 that we're just doing additional monitoring with a few funds where, in cases where their expenditures are more than current revenues, and those are the Public Works Fund, Cultural and Tourism, Leasehold, Building and Safety, and we've already made reductions there, in self-insurance. Leasehold has, their expenditures are lower than current revenue, but we did just recently hear of one leaseholder who's moving out of their property, so we just want to keep a close watch on those, and from now until the end of the fiscal year, if we anticipate that there's any problem, we'll make additional reductions there.
The next handout item is the Urban Renewal Agency third quarter report. And in general, things are tracking as expected in all of the areas, all funds, the construction fund as well as the debt service fund. Notes I've made include in the urban renewal area, Riverfront downtown, our budgeted projects are $2.1 million less. We had anticipated that within the budget. What we are spending money on are toolbox grant disbursements, pedestrian bulb outs, and the High Street water line. The other next one I'm going to point out would be the North Gateway urban renewal area. We've accelerated payment on outstanding debt in this fund, thus the increase in expense in the debt service fund so that we can pay off that loan that much sooner. And this is the urban renewal area that has the Comcast property value issue going on, whereby the Department of Revenue changed the assessed valuation on Comcast property in this area, so they've picked up the revenue. It is being held in reserve until which time the case is resolved. The Salem urban renewal area has expenses going toward the Edgewater 2nd Street redevelopment action plan, toolbox grants, and project coordination. Their revenue is up, annual tax increment revenue is up, which is good news. And the rest of the funds are in your report. There's no significant issues in either of them the way I'm viewing this. We also include the Salem Conference Center Fund on page 5 of this report, which discusses the revenues from beverage sales, which show a net increase of 63.3% compared to the same time last year. That's the revenue side. The expenditure side, we spend money on producing conference center events, and they're lower than expenses at this point in time. Any questions on the urban renewal third quarter report? Then I will move on to our next handout item, which is 5D. This is a follow-up on information of questions asked by the Budget Committee last week regarding the change in the employee contributions to the self-insurance programs. And this responds to those questions and indicates why those changes are there. This is provided for your information only and no action is required. The next report is on 5E, PERS increase in Fleet Services Division, again, provided for your information only, and this came up as a result of a question at last week's Budget Committee meeting. Item 5F is a follow-up to the Culture and Tourism Fund and art pedestals. And although I have made a recommendation here to decrease the Cultural and Tourism Fund materials and services by $100,000, increase the General Fund or Cultural and Tourism Fund contingencies by $100,000, Member Berger pointed out that this actually had occurred last week, so this is information that we will be, in fact, proceeding with these changes to the budget. The important information here is that we will be coming back to City Council with information on this fund, as we haven't had time to get to the Cultural and Tourism Advisory Board and formulate a recommendation on what particular programs that $100,000 will be coming from. The other element of this report is regarding the art pedestals. The City Council or the Budget Committee had suggested that we find some funds to provide for infrastructure for art at the Salem Conference Center. The recommendation is to designate $60,000 coming from existing appropriation authority, which is presently in the gain loss reserve, whereby we would take $20,000 of that, and then $40,000 would come from the Riverfront Urban Renewal Area money that's designated for Vision 2020.
And if I could just add, the motion that the Budget Committee made was $40,000, but we don't have any estimates on what the cost is yet. So I'm recommending that we appropriate $60,000, and then the amount that's not used, we'll try to keep it under the $40,000, but the amount that's not used will just go back to the beginning fund balance.
I'm sorry, Member Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to make sure this is real clear, that I understand this. This is pedestals for art is incidental to repairs to the conference center, which has flooding problems in its basement. Do I understand that correctly?
That's right. The irrigation lines that water the planters were causing leaks that caused some leaking into the conference center parking garage in the last year. So some repairs need to be made from that, and so that's an estimate of the $20,000 from the gain loss reserve that we're taking out for this. And then this project would be to place pedestals where the landscaping used to be in those planters before we started investigating what the problem was. So we put pedestals in there with some material around them, and that's where the art sculpture would be, and then we're recommending that up to $40,000 be used for that purpose.
And in the process forestall future flooding, I presume?
Yes, we think future flooding will be forestalled.
Okay, thanks.
So I would appreciate if the committee would approves or agrees that there be action taken on recommendation number 2 of this report.
Staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation has been moved by Member Cannon, seconded by Member Bennett on F.2. Is that correct? Any further discussion? Yes, Member Berger?
Oh, no, go ahead.
So, just so I understand the motion, we put this on the wish list, and now staff is recommending to take this off the wish list and make it actual hard dollars.
That's correct.
That's right.
And I would just like to add that I want to be absolutely clear that the funding that will come out of this fund for the pedestal for the works of art, but the actual costs of bringing the works of art to the downtown area and placing them there and having them there on public view will be raised by the Oregon Artist Series Foundation. It's not a city expense.
Yes, Member Berger?
I'm going to vote against this motion, one procedurally, and one, I'm not sure if I agree with spending this money. Spending this money, I may be able to convince. Procedurally, this, to me, is a wish list item, and I'd like to address the wish list items as a group, as opposed to, if we're getting into that where we're discussing them, I'd like to discuss them. But just to pull this one out right away at the beginning without a discussion of all the wish list items, I don't necessarily think is appropriate. To me, there may be other wish list items which hold sway, but if we look at them as a group, but if we look at them individually, then we'll surely say, oh yeah, I want to do that. Thank you.
Call the question.
All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
I have to admit I was on the fence on that one because, but, yeah. The motion passes.
Moving on to item 5G, social service allocations. This is provided as clarification to some questions brought up at the Budget Committee meeting on April 27th, and it may help you resolve the outstanding item that is on the wish list regarding the funding for social service agencies, whereby the Budget Committee has asked to consider adding $15,000 to that allocation. The next item is item 6, which is the summary of Budget Committee actions through May 4th. We have the financial breakdown of the actions approved, both errata sheets and actions taken by the Budget Committee. Projects placed on the wish list is attachment number 2. Attachment number 3 is information and reports requested by the Budget Committee. And attachment 4 is the list of correspondence received through May 4th. Madam Chair?
Number 7, it's time for a goal setting and policy discussion. Does anyone have anything to say? Yes, Member Motley?
Thank you. As a matter of goal setting and policy discussion, I have no motion to make, but I want to make known that I strenuously object to the second portion of item 8, where we will be limiting testimony to those who have testified, to those who have not testified previously, or only testify on reports that appear in this evening's agenda. I am completely unaware of anything that was said, published, or otherwise made known previously to anyone wishing to give testimony, that when they did so, they were surrendering their rights to do so tonight. I'm sorry, I can't buy off on that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Manager Norris,
Yes, and I would have to refer to Ms. Neville. Is this the standard procedure that is used in the last meeting of the Budget Committee?
This has been used at the last meeting of the Budget Committee ever since I've been doing this.
And I think the intent of this is that there are presentations and there are no other Budget Committee meetings through this process. And so my understanding of the way the process has worked is, at this point, is people who testified earlier, there's, you can make that decision, but I think this was just carried over from previous years.
so Member Motley, you had a motion, did you say?
No, I didn't make any motion. I
Okay.
just wanted to state that I find this process objectionable. And as for past practice, it's not in our rules of procedure to do so. If it were, I wouldn't have said anything. I find it an objectionable practice.
I have to admit, I had not noticed that in our past practice, and I do not know if we've observed it. Member Bennett?
Well, let's hope we haven't. I would move then that, I'm not sure what the correct motion is, so help me out here but that we would suspend this rule to allow all comers to testify.
I would second that motion. Yes, Member Nenke?
Yeah, just kind of from an historical perspective on that, it was so that we didn't get the exact same testimony again that we'd already received prior, but we've had several people over the years do it, and so we basically ignored that for the most part throughout, my time here at least as well. But it was just in the, for
I
time
thought-
constraints, if we're hearing and getting the exact same testimony from all of those funds, especially in years where we were really, cutting severely into some funds, where the public hearings as they went through or public testimony on those nights of the budget, say with parks and pools and police officers and things like that, we could essentially be here until next week to have everyone testify again. But I don't necessarily see that as being the case tonight, so I agree wholeheartedly with the motion.
I have no recollection of that rule ever being enforced, but I couldn't support anything that limits public participation. So, further comments? Member Cannon?
I note on the wish list that I don't see the McKay Park issue. So is it currently pending on the wish list? I would ask the city manager.
Yes, Mr. Bechtel, McKay Park.
We have
Mr. Fernandez is going
We
to
have a
speak.
motion on the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So-
I interrupted
We
Mr.
have
Bennett. My apologies.
The motion was to suspend what's the specific part we're suspending here?
Second sentence of item 8.
Are we suspending all of item
No,
8?
it's, Madam Chair, my motion is to suspend the final sentence, that testimony be limited to those who've not testified. It's to get rid of that language at this point. And hopefully, that's my motion.
Okay.
Hopefully, in the future, this will be dealt with in our rulemaking as we begin, so it doesn't show up again, because we may not have Member Motley here to keep
Or
us straight.
your second concurs with that, hopefully. So the motion by Member Bennett, seconded by Member Strozit, is to strike the last sentence of number 8. Suspend it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good catch. Do we?
There was a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Member Cannon.
I'd like to get back to my question before I interrupted Member Bennett's motion. The question is to the city manager, does the McKay Park upgrades or improvements on our wish list?
I believe they're being handled in this year's budget. Is that correct? But Mr. Bechtel, if you can speak to that.
Mark Bechtel, Parks and Transportation Services Manager. The master plan update would be put into this coming year's budget, 11-12, and then the improvements, where you had a request for information, we described verbally over the microphone last meeting, and that is it's somewhere in the neighborhoods of 1.2 to 1.3 million, but until we're finished the master plan update for McKay Park, we would not have an exact number. So that's just a ballpark estimate between 1.2 and 1.3 million.
And I think you said 11-12 budget. You meant the 10-11 budget.
It's a carryover from the
Yeah.
the money to do the master plan update is a carryover from this year's current budget into the 11-12 budget. Yeah.
So the answer is
Yes, we will be
done.
doing, it will be done. The planning, the master planning for the park will be done.
And then the improvements will be made
As they're funded.
as they're funded
Yeah,
in this budget?
They're not in this budget, so we need to do the master plan and move forward with what the improvements would be, what the cost is, what the design is, and then identify funding. And it's not identified in the 11-12 budget, the 1.2 million.
Additional question on that. It seems to me that Mr. Fernandez sent an email out indicating that he had money in this year's budget to do that.
Just for the planning.
For the
That was
planning.
what the request was to find money for the planning so that the people who are doing the fundraising could move forward with their process.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think, whoops. Yes.
I think I just had a quick comment that due to the, I know that it happens sometimes, but I haven't been able to go over this. We got this real late, and I just have concerns about if I seem objectionable. It's because this is going to be all fresh to me tonight. So I just want that to be noted that I didn't get to it.
I think that staff was scrambling, and yes, we haven't had as much time to review some of this as we normally do. I think we are ready to receive public testimony.
Member Berger had a question.
Member Brigger,
I have a question for Member Cannon.
microphone, please.
I have a question for Member Cannon. I've been contemplating the motion we made to transfer $100,000 into contingency, and I'm wondering if the purpose of that was to move it into contingency so that during the year we would use it for something else, or was it truly to move it into contingency so that it would be part of the ending fund balance that would sustain us in future years? Those are two different purposes in my mind, and I'm wondering, in your mind, as making the motion, what your intent was.
That's going back to last meeting on the TOT funding and I don't have that budget in front of me. My point was to reduce the total expenditures by $100,000, put those monies into contingency, thereby increasing the contingency by $100,000, and that it was not, and doing so, we would not impact the facilities that we had, and that was a question by the chair, and it would only be reduced to reduce those things that were actual grants to non-facilities. So the purpose was to take into consideration the fact that we were going to have a reduction in revenues, and if we put the money into contingency, then that would allow the top board, if we got more revenue than we were anticipating, to put money back into the grant program without doing a supplemental budget. So it's a mechanism by which we could, the top board and the council, through the city manager, could adjust grants based upon our revenue.
Member
That was
Bennett.
purpose.
Oops. Member Bennett.
I want to join Member Cannon in his recollection, and then to also add to it, I think, that it also, by moving it into contingency, made it available to the Budget Committee for other purposes tonight or to the council in the future, putting it into a fund that's available. So if you have ideas relative to $100,000 worth of top funds, you would have an opportunity this evening to make a motion, I think. I think those funds are available.
As the funds are put into the contingency account, then that means when the budget is adopted, they're appropriated. And so it is possible to use them after the budget's adopted. I think if there were a motion this evening to do something else with those funds, it would be taking it back out of the contingency and designating them for some other purpose.
Mayor Peterson.
Well, go ahead and take
Member
Bennett, and then I'll...
Member Bennett.
Well, okay, I want to just understand, potentially that $100,000 is in play this evening.
It is.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, my comment would be that I don't believe that that was our intent last week, that we would move the $100,000 into contingency so that we could come back tonight and decide how that money would be spent. That fund is recommended, disbursement of that fund is recommended to us by the Cultural and Tourism Board, the top board. And I think that would be a sad misuse of our authority as a budget committee to now make a decision about any portion of that $100,000 without the courtesy of the top board making the recommendations that are their responsibility.
It'll be Member Bennett after me, and then Member Nanke.
I think Berger.
And then, okay, Bennett, Nanki, Berger. All right, I should say I did attend the top board meeting last night, and they are going to have a special meeting next week to consider this, so that'll be May 17th. And I hesitate to go down this road, but my memory of the motion was, it was a real straightforward motion that we move $100 from the, 100,000, 100 would be fine too. 100,000 from the recommended budget, top budget, to contingency, and there were no strings attached to it. But the rationale at that time was that because of gas prices, we should be more safe and have a larger contingency. That was the rationale presented at that time. And verbally, but not as part of the motion, the Budget Committee made a commitment to leave whole maintenance of historic properties, both buildings and landscape. And now, Member Bennett again, and then Nanki and Berger.
Just to support what the mayor is saying, I think she strikes exactly the right note in terms of how this would be, how appropriately procedurally handled. Certainly a motion could do otherwise, but it would also seem that one of the opportunities for the Budget Committee, which it's doing, would be maybe to recommend back to the top board an idea for allocation. So that if anyone has an idea they'd like to send through the Budget Committee back to the top board as an advisory opinion or some, this is where we think the money would be very wisely spent, just as a thought, and so that if Member Berger has an idea, he has an opportunity to at least get it on the floor and talk about it.
Member Nanki?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I was going to reiterate exactly what you expounded, which was that because of the fuel prices and what have you, and where they may end up, that revenue may not come in at all, and so I don't think it would be advantageous for us to start directing it around if there's a concern that it won't be there at all, because then we'd have to deal with the shortfall, which is why we moved it into contingency in the first place.
That's one fund where my memory is usually pretty good. Member Berger?
And the purpose of starting this discussion was, since we are pulling that fund out without actually specifically, we're not specifically saying where it's going to come from, and then by putting it into contingency, we're not saying specifically where it's going to go. So I was trying to get to the intent that if the intent was that we're going to take it out of the Budget Committee's hand and then City Council will later decide where it's going, I would have made a motion to allocate that funds, because I think it's important for us to have a whole budget and not leave pots of funds that groups later down the line are planning on playing with. If it's truly contingency where we think we need that large of contingency, I'm fine with it. I would have made a motion to put it towards park maintenance because I think that's an important part of what TOT does, but I don't think I'm going to make that motion. And if those funds are still around, the top board hopefully will look at putting it towards park maintenance or the other priorities they have.
Member Nanki?
Just knowing that we'll have to wait and see how that revenue comes in, is there any reason why the Budget Committee could not be informed of any recommendations that come from the TOT board if the revenues do in fact equal what they were originally estimated to be, so that we could bring it up at one of our quarterlies even?
Yes, that's what I would suggest. We can bring it up at one of our quarterly financial review Budget Committee meetings.
Any further discussion? Yes, Member George.
I don't know if this is the proper time to bring this up or not, because we're talking about the TOT board. Wasn't that where the radio station KMUS came forward to ask for some money? Was that, and
Yes.
then there was supposed to be some kind of a legal opinion on that? I mean, do you, in fact, I sent a note to Deborah Neville today, and she said something about it, that there was, that he was putting together something on it. I just kind of wanted to know where that stood.
Yes, and the city attorney is here this evening. We didn't have the material in time to get it to you until immediately for the meeting. We have copies here, though, but I'm sure the city attorney can address it from his memo if this is the right time to do that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Budget member Neville has copies of your memo, Randall. And if the members would like to have a copy, we've tried to avoid giving you copies right at the meeting, but it wasn't possible to avoid it at this time.
Mr. Tosh?
Just briefly, I did look at it. The issue has to do with what the intent of the voters was at the time of adopting the charter provision in 1974. I reviewed the ballot title, did the typical legal analysis that lawyers do when they're looking at statutes and various kinds of amendments, and concluded that it does not appear that the radio tower would be eligible for TOT funding. The short part of the analysis is that because the TOT is established by the city charter, those funds are in essence constitutionally dedicated and can only be spent for the purposes that are set forth in the charter. And based on my review of the history of the charter provision, it appears that the TOT funds would be eligible for major tourist attractions, which would include buildings or facilities and certain kinds of events that take place in the city, and cultural facilities, which would again be buildings that have a cultural purpose, like a museum or an art gallery. So based on my read of the charter, I do not believe that the radio tower would be eligible for funding.
It wouldn't fall under promotion?
No, promotions is promotions. Now, if the city wanted to enter into a contract with KMUZ to do promotions, and that would be part of their broadcast program, that would be eligible, but the facility itself would not be.
Thank you. Before we leave TOT, I would comment that in 1999, the citizens did vote to revise that charter, and one part of the campaign and listed in the ballot explanation was using a major part of that 3% increase toward the maintenance of historic properties. Anything else on this topic? Yes, Member Motley?
Yes, thank you. Given Attorney Tosh's evaluation of ineligibility for the tower, I'd like to refer to an item in the budget already on page 182 under capital improvement and outlay grants, referring to granting $2,500 to Salem Folklore Community for a remote broadcast unit.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that fall in the same analysis?
It does. And I don't know, Mr. Tosh, if you want to respond to that. There may be other nuances with this one.
Yes, Mr. Motley is correct. I believe that too would be not an eligible expense under the charter provision.
Member Motley?
Can I ask then, or can I say and ask you to confirm or comment on the appropriation for $2,000 to the Salem Folklore Community for the life of Bob Marley, which is an entertainment type of thing, a public draw, a public event, etc. That would not fall under your analysis, is that right?
That would qualify as an attraction can include an event. It's a text context analysis, and what you have to do when you're determining the meaning of a statute or constitutional provision or provision in the charter is you start with the text itself. If you can discern the meaning from the text, that's as far as you go. If not, you go to a second level of analysis, which involves looking at things like dictionary definitions. Then you go to rules of grammar, and then you look at the legislative history. And if you read the memo, the definition for attraction is something that draws people by appealing to their desires or tastes. And a tourist is defined as one who travels from place to place for pleasure or culture. So in terms of trying to find a kind of a common understanding of what a tourist attraction was, I went to Wikipedia, which, if anything, reflects common understanding. And the Wikipedia actually has a definition for tourist attraction. It says it's a place of interest where tourists visit, typically for its inherent or exhibited cultural value, historic significance, natural or built beauty, or amusement opportunities. Because that includes events, my conclusion was that there are certain events that would qualify for funding under the major tourist attraction component of the prong. I actually think that of the two, cultural facility is probably more limited and really is addressed towards buildings and structures that have cultural, artistic, or historic significance.
If I could, as we talked about last week at the Budget Committee meeting, because of the motion to move $100,000 into contingencies, the Budget Committee would be moving this fund at the fund category levels rather than to come back to council with their feedback. So Mr. Motley, or Member Motley, excuse me, we would address that issue of the remote broadcast during that process.
And just one other point of clarification on this is that even if the antenna were eligible, it would not be the full amount. It would only be that portion that would be the service area for Salem, because the taxes are generated by Salem transient occupancy. They're assessed against hotels or people staying in hotels and motels in Salem, and because the city's authority stops at its corporate limits, at the time this was adopted, the voters would have assumed that those taxes would only be spent for things that directly benefit the voters of the city of Salem. And that's consistent with other advice that we've given in the past on the expenditure of TOT funds, specifically with relationship to the SCBA funding.
Member Dickey?
Thank you. Yeah, my question, I have a question and a comment, I think. So the money that's being recommended for the remote broadcast unit, for example, that's been recommended by the top board as a grant, is that correct?
That's correct.
So I guess my question, this is a more general question. We wouldn't have even be having this discussion if Member McEvely hadn't brought it up last week. And I have not reviewed every single one of these applications. Do we need to go back and look at every single one of these to make sure they qualify? Has it been our practice in past years to fund things that actually didn't qualify, but no one raised the question, so they went ahead and got funded?
Yes, so, and we don't believe that has happened, but that's one of the things that we've looked at, and we have and are doing a full review of everything on this list now. Yeah.
Member Motley?
Thank you. So my understanding here then is that with the analysis that the tower is not eligible for this funding, the remote broadcast is not eligible for this funding, but the entertainment function would be.
That's correct.
There is no necessity here for this committee to move any, to have any motions regarding any of this funding. TOT board is going to handle this, and either this committee or council will endorse TOT's appropriate recommendations. Is that?
That's correct. You would be, for the top fund, you would be moving it onto the city, your recommendation onto the city council at the large fund category levels.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Well, at least we haven't got through Budget Committee without having quite a discussion about TOT, so our tradition continues. If we're through with goal and policy discussion, let us have our public hearing on the City of Salem 2011-2012 budget.
Yes, and we have two sign-up sheets with two people. I think some members came into the room after we had collected the sign-up sheets, so there may be other people who wish to speak.
Thank you. Yes, we only have two members of the public who have signed up, but I did notice that a number of people came into the room after these were given to me, so once the folks who have signed up have spoken, then I'll call on you to see if there are other people who want to testify. And with that, the first person is Paul and I'm not sure of the last name. At first, I thought it was James, but I don't think it is. Okay, thank you. If you'd come to the podium. Just so you'll know, you have 3 minutes to testify. After 2 minutes, the yellow light will come on, and at the end of 3 minutes, your red light will come on. And please give us your name and your address or your ward.
Honorable Mayor, City Councilors, and Madam Chair. My name is Paul Jaudas, and I live in Ward 1, and I am here representing Americans for Prosperity. I am here to remind you and to remind our elected representatives of the continuing practice of charging a monthly franchise fee for the use of public right-of-ways that have already been paid for and maintained with our taxes and fees. I also remind the Council that this franchise fee has been hidden in our water and sewer bill. I also remind the Council that this franchise fee, collected as part of our water and sewer bill, is being diverted to the City of Salem's general fund and being used for spending that has nothing to do with water and sewer projects or public right-of-ways. We feel this hidden double taxation and redirection of funds is dishonest and deceitful. We feel it is time for this to end. Now is the time for the Council to take action to correct these practices. We have begun a campaign to educate our members and the entire City of Salem of this hidden tax and redirection of funds. And you may have already noticed an increase in correspondence regarding this franchise fee. In case you haven't noticed, I brought along something that you will notice. I know it's large, but I would like it to be entered in the public record. We've been asleep and we haven't been paying attention, and that's our fault. But we're awake now, and we'll be watching you like a hawk. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Nanki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for coming down tonight. Yeah, we've got more emails than the names that are on that, so the community is aware of that. I'm sympathetic to that. We'll be bringing that up, I think, in council goal setting at a small, just to see kind of where we want to go with that. And I know I want to request how the budget would be modified for next year. It's kind of late to do it on this one, but what impacts that would have for down the road. Because the letter we got today was very pointed in that respect. It's like, we own the roads, why are we charging ourselves a franchise fee and then moving money around? So I want a good answer to that one as well. Originally it was used for street maintenance, and then it moved back out, and we tried to move it back. But ever since I've been here, it's been that way. So when you walk in to the room and it's always been done this way, you figure somebody thought about it on the up front, and so we need to go back and think about it and act appropriately. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Neville, will you take his document to enter into the public record?
Oh.
Yeah, well, it is.
Oh, do you, Mayor Peterson?
Yeah. Just as kind of a point of order, I would like to be certain that the people in the room, in the council chambers, and the people who are watching this televised program on our budget hearing be informed. If staff could quickly, maybe our city attorney can do this, to just remind all of us how this process came about, this decision came about in a very public process, and why it is that we, this council, operate under this policy. I'm not looking for a lengthy discussion, but I'm very sensitive as a member of this council and as mayor when I hear allegations that we've done something underhanded or that we're doing something out of the sight of the public. So if somebody can just talk about how we got to this point, I would really appreciate that.
Deputy City Manager Shauna Day will address that.
Thanks.
Chair, members of the Budget Committee. Mayor, I think the answer to your question shortly was that 20 years ago, the council amended the code to provide for this franchise fee. Did so in a public process, public meeting, public hearing was held. And the specific franchise provision is found in SRC 7.110A for those who'd want to look it up.
I think Member Bennett had his hand up a hair before Member Nanki.
Well, we should finish our public testimony, and then we can drop back into that as questions
That's
of the budget.
are your questions for the anyone who's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Tom Beasley,
Excuse me.
do you have a question for?
Former speaker, yes. I do.
Yes. Oh,
Thank
okay.
you. I just want to clarify, I'm sorry, sir, I don't recall your name, but my question is, did I understand that you're representing a group?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I think our procedures call for us to ask for other members of that group to identify themselves and show support for the testimony given. Can we revert to doing that to see what kind of support there was for that testimony?
Thank you for reminding me of that. Could those who are here with Mr. Jaudas, please stand. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming, and thank you for testifying.
Thank you.
Member Clausen.
And Member Clausen?
Real quick question. That looked like an impressive list. Just for, I couldn't see it. How many people were on that petition?
I'm going to say 41.
Obviously, that would be not official yet, but just curious.
That many.
That many. Got it. Ballpark 50? Just ballpark.
Extra points if you guess right.
41.
Member Clausen.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Oh dear. I'm sorry. Okay. Tom Beasley, thank you again.
Madam Chair, could I move to the end of the queue in case there are other people here who would like to testify before me, since I've spoken here before?
Sure. Are there people who would like to testify who have not signed up to speak? Is there anyone here who wanted to speak? Okay. Then I guess you're the end of the queue now.
Will not be the first time. Before I start, Madam Chair, could I ask that the Budget Committee have the illustrations that I've sent forward to them, which would be a recapitulation of a 1% increase in salary and benefits for the present fiscal year. And the second would be the original letter I mentioned in my first testimony from Mrs. Mary Ellen Ryan. Is that in hand as well?
I think it looks as though each of us, except for the mayor and manager, didn't receive.
You see it in that
It's on the last page.
No, it's not in there.
The one you.
No, I don't think they got it.
It's not, but that's okay.
You two one and I'm okay. Oh, thank you. All right, let's, if you would go ahead. I think we've got our copies distributed as best we can.
Fine. Madam Chairman, Budget Committee members, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Beasley and I reside in Ward 3. Tonight I want to speak to you about 3 precepts that should attend any discussion of governmental spending. And those 3 are courage, appreciation, and reasonableness. In his first presentation, Mr. Fernandez applauded the councils for their courage in approving the water sewer rate increases that were required to bring the utility up to state and federal standards. With respect to Mr. Fernandez, they were not, in my view, acts of courage. They were acts of necessity. For if the council hadn't done so, the corporation would have faced stiff penalties from both state and federal agencies until those standards were met. The true courage, as always, was borne by the shareholders who gritted their teeth for more than a decade and paid the bills, and will pay off bonded indebtedness for decades to come. Attendees at these meetings have thanked the committee for the monetary support accorded past requests and hoped for future requests. Not once within my hearing did they ever thank the shareholders who pay to run the corporation. I believe a constant expression of appreciation should be directed outward from these chambers, not inward. And what of reasonableness? Have the present budget request thoroughly discussed? Reasonableness, I believe they have not, and here I would refer you to the 1% reconciliation. And I would ask that you first focus on the grand total of salary and benefit costs for the ending fiscal year as calculated for 1,185.1 full-time equivalents. It's at the bottom lower hand right of the handout. You'll note that the total is $118.5 million. That makes the unit FTE cost more than $100,000. Now please focus at the top left at the amounts of money shareholders are required to pay for pension contributions only. The last 3 entries under salary-driven benefits total more than $12 million. This year's budget raises that total to more than $17 million. Now focus, please, on the 3 entries for medical, vision, and dental costs, which are in the lower right-hand corner, which, when taken together, total nearly $16 million. In this year's proposed budget, that number rises to some $16.2 million. As a matter of reasonableness, isn't it time for the corporation's employees to contribute 6% of their salaries to their own retirement? It would save more than $4.4 million. Isn't it time for the corporation's employees to contribute just 20% of their salaries to their own health care costs? That would save more than $3.2 million. And what would you do with a savings of more than $7.5 million? First, you would stop taking shareholders' water sewer payment monies, which would total $2.5 million as a franchise fee. And the remaining $5 million I will bring to your attention if questions are asked. That ends my testimony.
Member Clausen?
I personally would like to hear the rest of Mr. Beasley's testimony. I'd like to move that we suspend the rules so we can hear the rest.
It's been moved by Member Clausen, seconded by Member Nanke to suspend the rules to allow Mr. Beasley to complete his testimony. Member McEvely?
I'd vote against suspending the rules because the Budget Committee, as I've learned over the last few years, really has no power in terms of the collective bargaining, the employee cost, employee benefits. That's all really shifted to the council level. This committee really has no authority in that. So I would vote against suspending the rules because we're going to hear stuff that council needs to hear at a later date, but the Budget Committee has no impact or power over.
Member Nanke?
I would disagree with that. Is there's a slight majority tonight, you could vote to not recommend the budget, and there would be no budget. So there is some element of ability inside of the Budget Committee.
Member Bennett, did you have your hand up, or you were just looking?
Mr. Berger did.
Member Berger?
I'd be fine with the motion if you put a time limit on it, as opposed to suspending the rules to let him talk as long as he wants.
Member Clausen?
What is the normal time limit? I'm sorry, is it 3 minutes?
It's 3 minutes for individuals and 5
Okay,
minutes.
let's go with another 3 minutes.
Okay.
Good idea.
So, it's been moved to suspend the rules to allow public testimony from Mr. Beasley for another 3 minutes, and it was moved by Member Clausen, seconded by Member Nanki. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Point of, No,
Can we
it-
raise, how about those opposed raise their hand? It'd
no,
be-
just a point. Since we have a no vote on a rule to suspend the motion, a motion to suspend the rules, the motion fails.
All right.
So, but you can ask him questions. You can ask the speaker as many questions as you might like.
I will go back to Member Clausen, who had his hand up.
Mr. Beasley, it seems like you're in the middle of a thought. Would you mind finishing that for me?
Not at all, sir. To begin, again, you would stop taxing shareholders on the water sewer fund payments, and you would save $2.5 million. And what would you do with the remaining $5 million? You could dedicate $1 million to street maintenance. You could dedicate $1 million to keep the library and the West Salem branch open in this, the state's premier library in its capital city, open 7 days a week, and stop the erosion of its subscription and book acquisitions. You could actually increase police and fire rather than always threatening to reduce their ranks. You could spend $1 million to renovate McNary Park and in future increase maintenance of all parks. If I were in this well, I would not recommend a budget containing a provision that takes the $2.5 million from the water sewer utility, and I would not recommend the proposed fee adjustment for a 3% increase in water sewer rates that are effective on January 1st, 2012. It would not be necessary. Mr. Fernandez would be whole if you left $2.5 million with him. The corporation's structural and financial problems are before you in the salary and benefits illustration and in the corporation's long-term debt obligations. Winston Churchill once said, "Men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of them pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had happened." It's past time that the corporation's employees help to solve these problems instead of hurrying off as if the problem doesn't exist.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Beasley? Yes, Member Cannon?
Go ahead.
Or Member Dickey?
I think I just have a comment more than a question. And do appreciate you coming down, and as you've heard tonight, we will be looking at the issue of the franchise fees a little more in depth from City Council. But I guess I just feel really compelled to say that we are all shareholders as well as you define shareholders. We don't sit here and make decisions for someone else that we do not have to live by ourselves. So I feel compelled to point that out because I feel like you're telling us we're making decisions for someone else when we don't have to live by those same rules. So.
Can I respond? May I respond?
Briefly.
Well, there are 157,000 souls living in Salem just now. 30,000 of them returned ballots in the last mayoral election, and there are 9 members on the City Council.
Member Cannon?
Thank you for coming down tonight. I just wanted to answer the question that you posed to us concerning the Public Employees Retirement System, or PERS, as I refer to it. Just so you have some background and flavor, I was one of the attorneys that lost the largest class action lawsuit in the history of the state of Oregon. I represented cities and counties, and it wasn't because the cities and counties were wrong in saying the state couldn't do what it's doing with regard to the Public Employees Retirement System. It was because the cities and counties cannot sue the sovereign or cannot sue the state. So the legislature has put us in a position, cities and counties, local government basically, that we can't get out of. And the legislature has set the rules. So with regard to the Public Employees Retirement System, whatever the amount of money is, it is. And I would love an opportunity to revisit those lawsuits, but currently we can't, because we cannot sue the state. So that's the background. Local governments are stuck. The state of Oregon is stuck. The legislature has envisioned a system which, for all intents and purposes, was admirable to start with, but has gotten twisted now to the point where it's, what did the city manager say, 23% of each individual's salary is PERS, total cost?
I don't remember the exact number, but that's close.
That's about close?
Yeah.
Yes. So there you go. And so you pose the question, and now you have a basic understanding as to how that works.
Can I give you my basic understanding?
Well, my history is probably a lot different than yours, so.
Any other questions for Mr. Beasley?
May I not respond?
I think we really aren't going to have an extended debate, so.
No, then I'll challenge Mr. Cannon's remarks at the next city council meeting, because you can bargain with a 6%
Thank you. You can come and speak at the next city council meeting. All right. Again, one last call for any further public testimony on the city budget. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the FY 2011-12 City of Salem ad valorem property taxes?
Move staff recommendation.
Second. It was moved by Member Cannon and I think seconded by Member Thomas to move staff recommendation. Any discussion? Yes, Member Bennett?
Not sure. I'll make sure I'm on the right pew here, but in the right pew. I would move to amend the motion to include items on the wish list as of the final meeting where wish list items were added, or are they in there?
That's a separate item.
That's a separate
Yeah.
item.
Yes, we're not.
I got it.
We're not there yet. Quite doing the budget yet.
Okay.
We're doing the way to pay for the budget.
So, okay.
We're on our agenda, we're on number 9.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion of the motion? Do we all understand it? Member Motley? And then Member Clausen?
No, Member Motley doesn't understand it.
And this is,
If we, how can we set a tax rate if we don't have a budget set? I'm sorry, you lost me some more. Help.
Member Motley, and Budget Committee members, the ad valorem taxes are a revenue source to the general fund and the debt service fund. And instrumental in having a budget, we need to acknowledge the revenue that would be coming in. So we've made estimates as to the amount of revenue that would be received by implying these dollar figures to the ad valorem tax. The other formality is that the Budget Committee must approve the ad valorem tax rates as defined in the Oregon budget law. So we're asking that you do that prior to approving the budget, so we know that we have actually secured the revenue we need to proceed with that.
Okay, so then what I'm understanding is that the $5.83.15 rate is the result of some mathematical derivation having to do with assessed property values and yada, 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 somehow or another.
Yes, that is the that $5.83 is the permanent rate that was established back when Measure 47 and 50 were approved in 1996 and 7. That rate has been in place since that time, and until it's changed in the Constitution, that in fact is Salem's rate on per thousand on assessed valuation.
Thank you.
Member Cannon?
Just to follow that a little bit, Member Motley, essentially the Department of Revenue did a huge mathematical computation and gave us a number through administrative rule. And so That's the number that they came up with through, and it's a black box because local governments never got an opportunity to go back in and see what the formula was. So it's a very interesting number. Just exactly how they came up with it, there are a few people that know.
Member Clausen and then Member Summers.
So why are we voting on this if we don't have a say in the rate?
It's required that we vote on this to be able to collect the taxes, otherwise we would have no revenue and have to close the city.
Member Summers.
I believe it is correct that the Budget Committee could recommend a lower number, but cannot recommend a higher number.
That's true.
Member Clausen.
Is it possible to abstain? I didn't get to read this, didn't get to ask questions, and I feel like there's a lot of information that's not in the staff report that feel like I need to understand in order to vote on something like this.
I think you could abstain. The only way it would be a problem is if we don't have 10 votes, then I'm sure we'll have a conversation. Yes.
I mean, actually, I disagree with that comment, okay? That the point of tonight is not to have a quorum. The point of tonight is to get a budget out of here that people approve. And so I disagree with the chair's comment that, well, if you do that, we might not get a quorum. I think that's exactly the wrong attitude to take on this. I just want to go on the record with that.
Well, it's just a statement of fact. It's not a value judgment.
Whether or not we have a quorum or not, last year the budget failed on the first vote. And they arm twisted during a recess. Question was whether or not that was even legal to do that away from public debate to get one more vote to pass the budget. That's what happened last year. And I don't think any of us are sitting here just hoping that we have a quorum. I think we want to take a little bit more seriously what we're doing. And I think to try and discourage someone from abstaining because it may cost us a quorum, I think is a horrible way to go.
I would reject the idea that anyone was suggesting anyone abstain. My comment was to reiterate that it takes 10 of us to pass anything, and that's the extent of my comment. I would also object to any characterization of any budget member not taking their job seriously. I respect and value the vote and opinions of each of us, and I think each of us does that in turn. Are there any other comments on the motion on the floor? Yes, Member Berger?
Can you point me to where the staff did discuss this particular motion earlier in the last 3 months, other than what's in the agenda?
We have not.
We discussed it when we did the general fund, when I did the general fund overview, and there's a memo too that's agenda item 9, if you've seen that in your packet tonight. It was also, a discussion of this was also in the brochure that we gave the budget committee members that's put out by the state of Oregon that explains this process during your orientation.
Okay. Yes?
Just a quick question. Has it
Member
always
Pruitt.
been at the 5.81%? Is it?
I don't know always, but since
the passage of Measure 47 and 50, it has.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor, which was to approve staff recommendation? Member Clausen?
I think I just want to clarify my reason for abstaining on this. I'm new to the Budget Committee. Didn't know this was on the agenda for tonight until 11:33 last night p.m. Obviously didn't get the email till about 11 o'clock this morning. Haven't had a chance to read any of this or do any research on this. So just want to make it clear that if I'm going to vote on a motion that's passing a tax for the residents of my ward, I feel like I really need the time to understand this in and out, be able to have my chance to ask questions aside from just here on the floor, and have a thorough understanding. So I respect everybody else who understands it thoroughly, and I just want to be clear why I'm abstaining.
Member Motley?
I just had a curiosity here. Deborah, what's the value of each 1/10,000th of a dollar in this rate.
I don't understand your question.
If we amended this and we said we're going to go with 5.8314, how much would that cost us?
I don't have that calculation.
Ms. Norris?
I'm checking to see if there's a way that we could calculate that.
Well, staff is doing that. Member Tessler, I think I overlooked her, so let's give her a chance to.
I have a question for our budget person. When was this agenda sent out, Ms. Neville? When was this agenda sent out? It was sent out Wednesday night, was it not?
It was sent out about 4:30 yesterday, Tuesday.
On Tuesday?
Today being Wednesday, yesterday.
Okay,
at
so
4:30.
today is Wednesday, and it was
Correct.
sent out at 4:30.
Correct.
Right, and that's when I got the email. So I guess it's inherent upon a budget committee member or a counselor or a member of the public to look at email and study it before they come to a meeting and make note of important changes. I know that's not the quickest turnaround and deadline, but that is how this process works. Is that correct?
That's true, and we did have a lot of wrap-up information to provide. We certainly would have preferred to get the agenda out early. It was not intentionally held late.
Okay.
So we were assembling a whole variety of input at this point for this meeting.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Member Clausen, before we get back to staff.
Due to my advanced technology on my phone here, it says that it was received in my email at 11:32 p.m. Less than 24 hours is not sufficient time for review of an agenda or a voting item.
And I believe, Mr. Clausen, when I looked at, when I got it on the email, it was at 4:32 p.m. I think what's happened sometimes with electronic media, that things can get delayed based on the time traffic. So I believe it went out late in the afternoon yesterday. I regret that it didn't get to your phone, to your email several hours later, but it did go out at the end of the day.
For what it's worth, I received it in the late afternoon as well. Member Berger, did you, you're just,
Yes, Member Motley, the calculation will be applied to, this rate will be applied to next year's assessed valuation. We don't have a way to calculate what next year's assessed valuation will be. And so we can't answer your question of, if we did a small change, a small reduction, what that revenue impact would be. So the property taxes are calculated in about October to go out in November based on what the assessed valuation is at that point in time.
Can I ask them, what would it equate to applied to the current valuation?
We could, if the Budget Committee would like us to do that, that would take 10 or 15 minutes to do that calculation, so.
No, I'm not going to move that by any means. Thank you.
Member Summers?
I believe it's true that the budget is an approximation anyway, that if the state doesn't come through with funds, if the assessed valuation does not come through, that we're going to reconvene the Budget Committee anyway to reassess the shortfall that may come by. If we'll go back and read the rules that the state has mandated for the Budget Committee, we would find that our job is very limited. One, we are to set the tax rate. Two, we are to give visibility, transparency to the community to ensure that the governing body's instructions to the staff have been fulfilled. And three, we're to approve the budget. Not to disapprove the budget, to approve the budget even if we don't necessarily like it, as long as it's been completed through the right process. So I called the state and said, what happens if we don't approve the budget? And they said, well, we'll take over the city. And I said, have you ever done that? And they said, yes, we did it once. Not to a city, but to a cemetery district or some other great, because every city, every cemetery district, every fire district, and everything goes through this same law. And it is not our job, even though we have the opportunity to talk to a lot of things, it's not our job to make sure that budget is, I was starting to say a bad word. It's not our job to make sure that the budget satisfies everybody's need, but it is an acceptable plan for which we can move forward. And we have a limited time frame in which to do that. The law is clear. Thank you.
Member Nanke?
Yes, and in that vein, we did not approve a couple of times last year, and it was maneuvered around. I actually had serious problems with the budget as it ended up last year, and due to quorum issues on the city council floor, I actually had to vote for something that I was vehemently opposed to. But we also had to have a budget in place, and I made those comments at that time. So,
You could have waited.
Any further comments on the motion on the floor, which, as we are still on item number 9, was to approve staff recommendation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed and one abstention? Now, how many ayes did we have?
everybody.
We've got 10.
Okay. All right, the motion passed. Now, have I done my process right? Are we through with number 9 and ready to go to number 10?
Was the motion to approve staff recommendation, I believe, so yes, we've completed.
Good, we were on that for quite a while, so, all right, number 10. This is the one. Motion to recommend the 2011-2012 City of Salem budget. So, Member Bennett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of the fiscal year 2011-2012 City of Salem budget, including wish list items as of this date.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved by Member Bennett, seconded by Member Dickey to approve the city manager's budget, including wish list items. Is that the motion?
Yes.
Would you like to speak to your motion before I call on other folks?
No.
Member Cannon, Member Nanke, and Member Motley.
Under attachment number 2, we have update MEN and grant neighborhood plans. It's a number to be announced. Could the maker of the motion put a number in? I don't remember what we were talking about at that point in time.
I believe the number that was placed in there was $15,000. It is probably not the right number.
Yes.
But
if I could ask Ms. Woods to come to the podium, they've done some analysis of their budget and priorities, and she can give you that information.
The cost of combining 2 neighborhood plans, which I'm Vicki Harden-Woods, I am your Community Development Director, and when you asked us to take a look at doing neighborhood plans, we tried to look at how we might be able to address neighborhood plans across the city, because there are 19 neighborhoods and every one of them deserves a neighborhood plan. So we looked at trying to combine neighborhood plans and do that more efficiently, combine 2. And we think we can do that for about $100,000. We looked at our budget, and what we did was to recommend, or at least offer an option of setting aside one program that we had and pushing it out till later, which was the fiscal impact of annexation. And then we could absorb that without having to make an amendment or increase the budget.
I'm not sure how to...
So there's...
That's great, but I'm not sure how to say that in what we just...
I think you can recommend to add the wish list items of additional funding for social service and additional funding for conference center public art exhibit, and recommend that the budget committee move forward with the budget with the different priorities so that the neighborhood plans can be adopted, or that work can be done.
So moved.
Second.
Is that substitute an amendment? What?
Well, I think it clarifies the motion on what to be determined means relative to that's what's difficult, is figuring out
So,
what that means.
Ms. Woods, my understanding, and correct me if I'm not right, is that you would be able, with the budget that we proposed here, you would be able to complete 2 of the neighborhood plans, as well as 2 new ones, as well as Morningside, by combining 2 with the current budget proposal. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, well then, to explain my motion, okay? I think the couple of wish list items that have amounts, really in a budget this size, de minimis amounts is pretty clear. This one is merely advisory, essentially advisory in the budget, saying we want you to proceed with these neighborhood plans, and let's get these 19 neighborhoods, really start processing this. So if I understand correctly, that's what's going on here.
Yes. And is that okay with the second? All right. Mayor Peterson, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. When I read this staff report early this morning, I noticed the suggestion by staff that if they did not if they eliminated doing the fiscal impact analysis on the annexation study until a later time, that they then would be able to manage the workload for the neighborhood plans. But my question is, did we as a city council direct city manager to have staff complete this fiscal impact analysis? Then I question how we as a budget committee can approve or adopt the recommendation from staff, which then would negate or overrule what our council decided, I think in January, was a priority for us, so that we could make an intelligent decision regarding annexations in the future.
Member Bennett, you had a response. I have two other people in line.
Go ahead.
I have 3 other people in line. Member Nanki is next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, and I was going to go to that same element. It would have been my recommendation on the neighborhood plans to punt that to City Council, because it's all policy items, in the respect that if staff could have put anything in that staff report, and the Budget Committee could say, yeah, we don't want Council to do that, so we're going to not let them do that monetarily. This is all Council policy. If we want to do neighborhood plans in any specific order, we determine through the city manager what the priorities should be for our planning department. And then as a follow-up into that, we already agreed on a resolution for wish list item 3, so really beyond that, then it just comes as a matter of whether or not we do something with social services.
Member George and then Member Motley. Oh, Member Motley and then Member George.
I think relative to this issue, but before I got that far in the thought process, I have multiple proposals for, I don't want that to sound like a list of 100. I have a few suggestions for changes to our budget where my take is that moving the budget at this point, from my perspective, is premature. And one of the things that I have on my list of motions to make has to do with that Community Development Department Planning Division money, regardless of what of the other events concerning parks or neighborhoods. So I guess generally, my comment is I don't feel like the group is, I'm not, as a member of this group, ready to move the budget forward until I can raise these few issues here and have discussion on them to amend the proposed budget.
And this would be the time.
This would be the time to do that. A supplemental
Yes,
motion
there-
or an amended motion.
There's a motion on the floor, so yes, this would be the time to discuss.
Okay, and clarify for me, this one point concerning CDD planning or everything on the list?
Well,
Yes, Member Cannon?
you have the opportunity to, we have a motion on the floor, so you can do an amendment to that motion to either include something or exclude something. Or you could do an entire supplemental motion, which would include the budget less X, Y, and Z, or the budget plus A, B, C. So you have the floor. You certainly can make whatever motions you deem appropriate.
Wow.
So you can do amendments individually and see what people want in, or make a blanket, which may fail. So that's kind of the politics of how you
Okay. In order to facilitate discussion, is it reasonable to ask the maker of the motion to withdraw that motion?
It's the main motion to approve the budget. That's when amendments would be added. So that motion needs to be on the floor.
Okay?
Yes, I
Okay.
think
All right. Thank
Member
you.
Nanke is correct. So we have a starting place. We're here now, so it's your opportunity, or any member's opportunity.
Thank you. Let me try to do that then, in whatever appropriate form this all tumbles out. I would move that there is an appropriation on page 37 of the general fund, Community Development Division, Planning Division, under account 52670 for other professional services, identified as fiscal impact analysis of city growth and annexations for $60,000. In my first movement, I move that appropriation be zeroed, that $60,000 be canceled. And I'm prepared to discuss my reasoning there.
Would you repeat your motion, and we need a second to discuss it?
I move to reduce the proposed appropriation of $60,000 for fiscal impact analysis of city growth and annexations in the general fund on page 37 of the proposed budget. Withdraw that $60,000 appropriation, cancel it.
So is that an amendment to the main motion?
Yes.
All right, is it seconded? All right, the motion fails or the amendment fails for lack of a second. I have Member George and I think Manager.
I have a series of these amendments or motions.
Okay.
Should I complete them? Is that appropriate? Okay. Okay, so kill that 60 grand. All right, on page 14 of the general fund, there is an appropriation for $4,000 for indirect cost allocation rate proposal consultant. I move that that appropriation is, again, zeroed. That appropriation in the proposed budget is canceled. And again, I'm prepared to discuss reasoning on that.
Is there a second to that amendment?
Can you repeat the item, please?
Repeat your amendment.
The item?
Yes.
The item is on page 14, the general fund. It's under administrative services, finance, accounting, and treasury services. It is account 52670, other professional services. The title of the $4,000 proposed appropriation is indirect cost allocation rate proposal consultant. My motion is to zero that value.
Is there a second to that amendment, that motion? All right, the amendment fails for lack of a second. Your next amendment?
Yes, on page 252 of the City Services Fund, Fleet Services, There is $30,000 proposed appropriation for a tire carousel. We had some previous discussion on that.
I'm
My
sorry,
motion-
which page again?
252, account 55130. My motion is to zero that proposed appropriation for $30,000 from the City Services Fund and add $30,000 on page 54 to the General Fund, Fire Department Emergency Operations, or alternatively splitting that with the EMS Fund for a tire carousel. And again, I'm prepared to discuss the motion.
Is there a second to the amendment? The amendment fails for lack of a second. You had an additional amendment?
I do. On page 302 in the Self-Insurance Fund, Risk Management Liability, I move we have,
I'm sorry, again, the page?
302, Self-Insurance Fund, account 52670, Other Professional Services. There is a proposed appropriation for $25,000 for flu shots. I move that that appropriation be zeroed. There are alternatives to that, and again, I'm prepared to discuss those.
Is there a second to that proposed amendment? The motion fails for a lack of a second. Did you have another amendment?
I do. Related to the Water and Sewer Fund right-of-way utility fee of 5%, I don't know that I can do this by motion, so if it's improper, please say so. I move that the 5% right-of-way utility fee value be reduced to 4%. To start towards what public testimony has been is an unpopular charge. I don't know if this budget committee has the capacity to recommend a change to the council of an established franchise fee or utility fee, right-of-way fee, but I would like to see the city move in the direction that the public has asked us to go, and I think a movement is some effort is 1% is a reduction to 4%, and I have some other numbers here what the net effect of that would be, and et cetera. But on overall general fund, we're talking about slightly over 1/2 of 1% reduction by that 1%.
I would second for discussion.
Right. The motion has been made and seconded to reduce the franchise. I'm sorry, Manager North.
Yes, if I could ask the city attorney, could you address the question Mr. Motley asked regarding the appropriateness of this recommendation?
Do you have a copy of the code up there that I can see?
Yes.
Appropriate to have a piece of discussion prior? Okay. But there's nothing that bars me from sidebar.
Yeah, the Budget Committee does not have the authority to do this. The amount is imposed by ordinance. The Budget Committee can make a recommendation that the council consider amending the ordinance to reduce the amount, but because the ordinance says that an amount equal to 5% of the gross revenues is to be collected by the city as a franchise fee, it would take an amendment to the ordinance to change that.
Thank you. All right, we've had advice from our city attorney that the Budget Committee does not have authority to change that fee.
And in light of that, I have a substitute motion then.
Yes?
Yes.
Or actually, if
You have additional.
Okay, so I want to withdraw that motion.
All right, the motion has been withdrawn and the second concurs.
Okay, you ready for the new one then? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I move that 1/5 of the proposed $99,490 transfer to the general fund from the water and sewer fund is not transferred, is not a part of this appropriation. I believe that works out to about $499,898.
What page are we on?
Oh, Lord, you shouldn't have asked that. It's in the general fund revenue. On page R2, the water and sewer fund is transferring to the general fund for the 2011-2012 budget. Proposal of $2,499,299, $90, excuse me.
So your motion is?
To reduce that by $499,898. That is the approximate equivalent of 1%. So the franchise, the fee would still be collected at 5%. However, only 4% would be moved to the general fund. The water sewer fund would retain 1% of the franchise fee.
Mr. Tosh?
Again, this would take an amendment to the ordinance. The Budget Committee can make a recommendation, a policy recommendation to the City Council to address these issues, but the ordinance both establishes the amount that is to be collected and also imposes a duty under subsection B that the Director of Finance periodically, but not less than annually, transfer the money from the water and sewer fund to the general fund. So that's a duty that is imposed on the Director of Finance. So to change that, again, you'd have to change the ordinance.
Okay, so the motion cannot be made as a recommendation to council?
It cannot, and thus I withdraw it.
I don't think it had been seconded. All right, do you have? I'm sorry.
No, that was withdrawn already, and then you made it.
Okay, sorry. I'm having trouble keeping too. Yes, I think Member Motley has the floor, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to yield it. Yes, Member Summers? I think that Member Motley is indicating he yields to you.
Indeed.
I make a motion that City Council address the franchise fee in all its questions associated with it, whether it's a tax, not a tax, whether it should be imposed, where it should be, and where it shouldn't be. This is something that has gone on for 18 years. We hear about it every year. Many people in our community think it's a tax. I agree, it is probably a tax. I'm not going to say that it is an illegal tax. It is done by the authority of the state, but it probably should be looked at and discussed.
If that is seconded, that would be an amendment to the main motion on the floor, I think.
I'll second it.
Okay, so oh dear, I cannot repeat your motion, members. Who seconded it?
I did.
Okay, so it's been moved by Member Summers, seconded by Member George to amend the main motion to refer everything to City Council. What are we referring to City Council?
Water, sewer.
Yes, to recommend that City Council address all the issues and questions related to the water sewer fund.
I think it was the water sewer franchise fee.
Yes, the water sewer franchise 5B. Thank you for the correction. Is there any discussion on that amendment? All those in favor? Can we vote on the amendment now before we, yes. Okay, I didn't want to go ahead and approve the whole budget. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, back to the discussion of the main motion I had in line, if he remembers, Member George.
If that's correct. And mine goes back to the, this has been brought up a couple of times, but back when Mr. Fernandez did the thing with Public Works, the question came up about the 6% gas tax that was levied by the state, and we were getting about $1 million from that, and I asked what that was going to be used for. He indicated that he was hiring an individual, or had hired an individual in the department. It was later pointed out that those funds are only for roads, streets, and the repair of. I think it was pretty specific what they were. I cannot support the budget at all, period, as long as that is, because that to me is improper. So that's I don't know. He might want to address that, but it was pointed out that money is actually for the repair of streets only.
And staff has done that research. If you'd like to have a response, Mr. Fernandez can get that.
Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director. I believe that testimony came up after the Public Works budget presentation. We've done research on the additional gas taxes that were imposed as part of House Bill 2001. There is no additional restriction on those funds, so they operate under the same restrictions that all gas taxes do in the state of Oregon, which is generally for the maintenance and operation of the transportation system. We did an extensive analysis of that. We've contacted ODOT, we've reviewed the legislation, the statute, and we've had the city attorney review it, and everything that we're doing with our existing expenditures and our proposed expenditures are all well within the constitutional limitations. So there is nothing, the person that we propose to hire, which is a maintenance operator one in the signs and sweeping unit, which is part of the maintenance and operations of our street system, is well within the constitutional constraints of the gas tax revenue.
Member George?
I just thank you for that.
I have Member Bennett down, and I had written down way long ago that Manager Norris had something to say, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time.
I do recall what it was. Okay. It was when council asked us, or when the budget committee asked to look at adding the neighborhood plans, the question to staff was to look at your budget and see how you might do that, because one of your rules in the past has been to, if you add something, to take something away. And so they've come back with, we can do it within the budget, proposed budget, if we delay the fiscal impact of annexation. And so that's the choice here. Yeah, unless, I mean, the budget committee could ask for the money to come from someplace else as well.
Okay, we'll do Member Bennett and then Mayor Peterson. And I recall a discussion where we talked about, another source, but go ahead in order.
Well, just to address a couple of issues. One, on the updated neighborhood plans, I am really satisfied with the description Member Nanke gave, that we have a policy issue that probably the council should look at separately as a policy issue. The adjustment would fall well within the council's ability to adjust the budget, or in fact, it doesn't change the balance sheet. So I really think Councilor Nanke made a really good point, and one that we ought to look at the policy issue of whether we want to expend money on this annexation fiscal question, or on our neighborhoods that are in the city. And I think that's an interesting, I'm looking forward to the conversation, and think we can explore it a little bit. Yeah, a second, for me, and that's, I don't know if you're comfortable with that, City Manager, but that's,
Oh, very much.
Okay.
Yes, that's fine.
okay. And then, so that would kind of come off the list. And then number 3 on the wish list, additional funding for the Conference Center Public Art Exhibit of $40,000 would be inappropriately applied to this. It's a URA budget.
That's right. That's from the URA budget. It's
Right, I
on the
wanted to
wish
make that
list,
real
but not general fund.
Yeah, it's not a general fund budget issue. Does that mean then, Manager, it should be removed at this point from
I
this motion?
think the discussion right now is what you want to have on the wish list. And then when you decide to pass the budgets, then you can make that distinction. Is that right, Ms. Neville? Do you want to respond to that?
Well, the way I heard the motion, it was to approve the budget with the wish list items. So I would suggest amending your motion to remove that one wish list item and include it in the urban renewal.
Yeah, I would move to amend my motion to remove additional funding for Conference Center Public Art Exhibit of $40,000.
Okay, Mayor Peterson had something to say, and that's on the motion on the floor. Go ahead.
With regard to the funding of the study, the analysis on annexations, I agree with Councilor Bennett. It sounds like we can have time to discuss that as a council issue. It's a council policy. And I feel very strongly that there should be no effort by staff to come back through the Budget Committee and ask for a recommendation and an approval that actually overrides our council authority and our council decisions. I am willing to look at that decision in the City Council meeting, but not in the Budget Committee.
Member Bennett?
Thank you. Yeah, with that in mind, just to follow up, and I think that it would be really wise to remove then, to add to my motion to remove item 1, the update of the Nen and Grant neighborhood plans with the to be determined, with the permission of my second, in order to just get that off. And we will talk about that in council, whether as a council motion or under our budget conversation. So that will change. That pretty much cuts down considerably on the wish list.
1 of 3.
Yeah, 1 out of 3 ain't bad.
I need to speak to
We
the
keep
motion.
talking, we may get to Motley's motion.
Okay, I skipped over Member Cannon. I apologize. You finally get to speak.
Speaking to the motion to withdraw number 3 from the wish list, it's my belief that we did that under 5.F when we approved staff recommendation already and removed that totally, and it's coming, the money will come out of urban renewal. That's correct, City Manager? It's already been done.
That's correct.
Okay.
You did make that decision.
Very good.
So we removed it.
It's already gone.
Okay, Member McEvely?
Just a general comment that, as we know, every year whatever gets recommended out of this committee goes to council. It gets changed dramatically, as it should, because we're really going back to what Member Dickey said a little minute ago. You guys are shareholders. At some point we have to elect people to make decisions. The 9 of you are the ones that we have elected to do that. So we have to have confidence in you once this budget's in your hand to make the right decisions. I still want to just impress upon everybody that I think we're still deferring, and putting off some extremely difficult decisions. I have no idea what year we're going to actually have to make those decisions, but I encourage the council, once they get this budget in their hands, that I think you need to start looking at it sooner rather than later. So, but I think we have to have confidence in the people we elected, and you folks are those people.
I would just say that having previously served on the Budget Committee for 6 years, some years council almost passed the budget intact as recommended, and sometimes they made quite a few changes at the last minute. So it varies from year to year. I understand that a number of citizen members felt there were quite a few changes made last year at council level. We have a motion on the floor. I have a question. At our neighborhood chairs meeting a few weeks ago, there was some discussion about rolling over the communications fund for neighborhood associations. Is that something that would need to be done through the budget committee, or just through, can council do that?
Actually, that was a small amount of money, and council can do that, and we're working on the best way to move forward with that.
That's fine. I know it's a very small amount of money. I just didn't want to let it pass by. All right, the motion on the floor was by Member Bennett and seconded by who? It was Nanki, okay. And the motion, Member Bennett, can you repeat your motion or sum it up for us?
Well, yeah, it was to amend the main motion, striking wish list items 1 and 3.
Any further discussion on that amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now, I believe we're ready for the main motion, are we? As amended. And Member Berger?
Question, first time through this process, the motion is to pass the budget as we've all amended it over the last several weeks. With the wish list item, there is still one wish list item. What is the policy function of that wish list item at that point? What does that $15,000 mean, since it isn't anywhere in the budget? What is a wish list item if we pass it at this point?
It's in the budget. If we pass a wish list item in the budget, then it's in the budget. So it's no longer a wish list.
We would add it, but the question you may be asking is where those funds would come from, where they are in the budget right now. Ms. Neville, will you respond to that?
Yes, there is no designated funds. They would have to come out of unappropriated ending balance would be one recommendation, or a possible reduce the contingency account. But it wouldn't be balanced in the same way if we add this $15,000 expenditure.
Then I move we remove item 2 from, we amend the motion to remove item 2 of the wish list from the budget.
Oops, okay. Is there a second to that amendment? The amendment fails for lack of a second. Back to the main motion. All those, any further comments on this? Okay. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say nay. Nay. Call for vote. Count. Yes. Could we raise the hands of the ayes? There are 11 ayes, so the motion passes. So we have a City of Salem budget. Now, I think we're going to work on an urban renewal budget. And that is number 11 on your agenda. Staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, now that we're in the urban renewal area, the Budget Committee for the Urban Renewal Agency must also approve the ad valorem taxes for urban renewal. This is for the same reasons that we just discussed for the City of Salem budget. And what we're approving here is the division of taxes and the special levy for the Urban Renewal Agency.
So moved. Staff recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve staff recommendation. Is there any discussion? Yes, Member Summers?
Could you explain the Fairview Industrial line? Because under division of taxes, it shows 100% for everything except Fairview, then on the right-hand side, the estimated total is the same number. Looks like that ought to be 100%.
Well, no, 100% would be greater than $460,000. Basically, what we're saying is we do not need 100% of the division of taxes. It's been established as what's known as an option 3 urban renewal area where the amount is set, and this is the amount sufficient to repay the debt in this particular urban renewal area.
So there's some other money out there that you're going to use for something else?
We're only going to collect $460,000. The other value is in the property tax base and collected as any other citywide tax. So,
So the rest of the money goes to all the other jurisdictions, including the city of Salem?
Correct.
And the transit and the school district and the...
I'll acquiesce to lack of understanding, but we can go forward.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve staff recommendation. Is there further discussion? All those in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Number 12, a motion to recommend the 2011-2012 Salem Urban Renewal Agency budget. Member Bennett?
Move staff recommendation or move the budget.
Okay, it's been moved. It hasn't been seconded.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Member Bennett, seconded by Member Cannon. Staff recommendation to approve the urban renewal budget as recommended. Is there any discussion?
The motion is actually to recommend it.
Yeah, to recommend it.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, yes. Was there a wish list item that we discussed that was going to...
You had already approved that motion earlier in the meeting.
Okay.
Because we are joint.
Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Other business. I have one bit of other business. Does anyone else have other business? First of all, I want to thank everyone. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I know I'm not technically through as chair, but the heavy part is finished. And I also understand that one of our members is not going to be serving after this year. Is that correct, Mr. Summers? So I'm sorry that we're going to lose you, and I want to thank you for your service. You're a great addition to the Budget Committee. Yes.
You know, I think the process is solid and sound, and I think, too, that you can stay on a committee like this too long because it is an educational benefit to each individual that serves. Also, not being qualified to be on any other city committees while I'm on this committee, I think I might have an opportunity somewhere else. Thank you.
Well, whichever committee will be lucky to get you. Yeah. Did anyone else have anything under other? Let's see. Member Cannon, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Vick won't be joining us next year either on the Budget Committee, and so I'd like to publicly say that he did a very good job and we appreciated his serving. Thank you so much.
You're here. I didn't know that, so thank you. Any other comments? We are adjourned. Thank you.